In the previous video, we already found that Asian economies saved more than the rest of the world, okay, regardless of their income level. Like, from the developing ones to developed ones in Asia, they both saved more than their counterparts in other regions of the world. Okay, and we said that, that might be one of the secret recipe for them to, being growing faster than the rest of the world. Okay, however, the saving itself is not productive, right? Again, especially when you look at this through the monetary way. So if you put the money under your mattress, it's not going to create more money for you in the future, right? You have to use your saving to invest, okay? So that's why here, let's take a look at the empirical evidence about the relationship between the investment and income level, okay? If we believe the higher saving leads to higher investment, which eventually leads to higher income, then we should expect a positive correlation between investment and income level. Now here, this figure shows the relationship between these two, okay? And we find that on the vertical axis, that's an income per person in 2003, okay? And the horizontal axis is the investment as a percent of output, which is a GDP, okay? And this is the average investment rate between 1960 to 2003, okay? Now, several things I would like to explain before we look at this relationship. Number one, on the vertical axis, this is basically the GDP per capita, right? Why we take log? That's because, among these economies, you would find a wide difference in their income level. Some of them, the income level was actually below, $500 per year. Some of them are above 8,000 or $80,000 or $90,000 per year. Okay, so once we take the log, the scale will become smaller. Okay, and then it will be easier for us to make the comparison, especially by assuming that there's a linear correlation between these two variables. Okay, in other words, taking the log can help us, kind of linearize this relationship. Of course, if the original relationship is non-linear, it will help us that way. Okay, if it's already the original relationship is already linear, then we don't have to worry about that. Okay. The horizontal axis is actually the investment, as a percent of output. Why we use the investment as a share in GDP instead of the investment itself, like expressed in dollars, for example. Okay, because here we want to factor in the size of the economy. Okay, if we just use the investment expressed in dollars, then of course some countries they probably have a huge number because of the size of their economy, like the United States, like China and India, right? But what we really want to know is how big the slice of the pie, the economic pie, has been devoted to investment in these countries. So we believe the share is better. Okay, another strength of using the share in GDP is we don't have to worry about inflation, right? Because again, during the same sample period across the nations, we already used the investment, which is expressed as a local currency, divided by GDP expressed in local currency. right? So we don't have to worry about like, are we comparing apples with oranges? Especially here we're looking at from 1960 to 2003, right? It's more than four decades apart, right? So if we look at the share, again, we don't have to worry about inflation. We don't have to worry about the exchange rate either, right? Remember, in previous video, we talked about the if exchange rate, especially the officially reported exchange rate, could be controlled or distorted, right? Again, here, because both investment and output are expressed in local currency, so we don't have to worry about the exchange rate at all, okay? All right, now let's come back and look at these scatter plots, okay? Obviously, there's a pretty strong positive correlation between these two. In other words, a higher share of investment in output or in GDP, the higher the income level. Okay, if we draw a regression line, again by assuming there's a linear relationship between these two variables, then the regression line here should look like this. Okay, the orange one, and you can also, loosely speaking, take this as a trend line. Okay, shows us, when the investment as a percentage of output goes up from, let's say, 5% to 10%, and how much the income per person would be increased. Okay. Now, if we take a closer look at this figure, you would find some Asian economies over there, right, being labeled. This is actually the reason I prefer using this figure, even though, you probably already noticed that the data is a little outdated, right? But again, I did not find a more recent one with these countries, especially the Asian economies, labeled. Okay? Now, you would be able to find here Japan, South Korea, Thailand, China, Pakistan, and India. Okay, these Asian economies being labeled, and the common thing you could easily find here is all of these Asian economies are actually lying below the orange trend line. What does that mean? Okay, once again, all of these Asian economies, they have been lying below the trend line, the orange trend line. Why? Okay, and again, think about these, and during our class meeting, we would be able to discuss these. Okay, does this mean these Asian economies are actually, with a higher saving rates we discussed before, they actually have a lower investment ratio? Another thing I would ask you guys to think about is, do you believe this chart or the figure offers the evidence that the higher investment leads to higher income? Okay, and we already said that there's a strong positive correlation between these two variables. Okay, does that mean, or is that, or could we consider that as a proof that higher investment leads to higher income? Okay, think about this and bring your thoughts to our meeting. And another thing we would like to briefly discuss is the FDI, which is a foreign direct investment. These days, almost all economies on our planet are open. Okay, even some economies, some dictatorship like North Korea, they still open to their neighboring countries like Russia and China, right? And we don't have a kind of 100% isolated economy, okay, on this planet. And so here, rather than getting the domestic investment, okay, we also have the foreign investment. Okay? In other words, the capital flowing into the economy from outside. Okay. Now, let me briefly explain D here. We said FDI stands for foreign direct investment, right? Foreign investment, these two words are pretty easy to understand. Direct here means it directly involves in the production of goods and services. Okay? In other words, an American company goes to India and opens up a factory, producing cars. Let's see, then that's a part of FDI. Okay, Indians FDI. If American companies goes to India and make some stock investment, just purchasing some financial assets, that is not part of FDI. Okay, that is not, because there's no corresponding production involved. Okay, so here this figure shows you the FDI inflows for top 20 host economies in 2017 and 2018. Okay, and as you could say here, different colors represent different income levels. The green ones are developed, and the orange ones are developing. Okay, and the darker ones being 2018, and the lighter bars stand for 2017. Okay, now when you look through these, you would find that in these top 20 recipients of FDI, we find 7 Asian economies. Okay, in other words, Asia accounts for more than 1/3 of this group of top 20. Okay, and if we just narrowly focused on the top 5, you would find China, Hong Kong, and Singapore took 3 spots in that group. Okay, again, these Asian economies received a lot of foreign direct investment. Okay, that could be another reason. On the top of their higher saving rate, they also received a lot of capital from the rest of the world, which helped them a lot with their industrialization, with their investment. Okay. All right. So here we already took a look at the several pieces of empirical evidence about Adam Smith theory. About the relationship between the saving and the capital stock. Okay, and on the next video, we're going to talk about the second channel put forward by Adam Smith, which is the relationship between the saving and the R&D. Okay, the technological innovation. We will take a look at Asia as the region compared to other regions. Does it have more R&D spending or not? Okay.